Hello, my name is Jonathan Diamond, and well, this is my journey of living my version of life, or whatever that says. Here's a little bit about myself. I'm 20 years old, a decision maker, self-advocate, homeschool graduate, cancer survivor who happens to have autism, council member of the Massachusetts Developmental Disability Council, ambassador for Operation House Call, great program by the way. A Flutie Fellow for the Doug Flutie Jr. Foundation for Autism, a co-chair for the Massachusetts Support Decision Making Coalition, like video games, pro wrestling, anime, and helping others. I have many different types of supports and supporters that help me live my best life. When I was physically and mentally abused by teachers. I shared my story with I've got to move the thing. I'm not used to this. So I'll just start again. When I was 8 years old, I was physically and mentally abused by teachers. I shared my story with the Disability Law Center. Having the bill passed to the law brought my mom and I so much peace in our hearts. Here's a little bit of a quote from the guy on the right, Rick Glassman, really great guy, met him and worked with him. I can truly say he was one of the friends that helped me on making this movie this for you. The world only gets better when we all work together. Advocacy is a chance to share my voice, stories, so others can learn from my experiences and make a positive impact. Advocacy gave me a purpose when I really needed one. It brings me joy to know I can make a difference for myself and others. Tell others any way I can. When I was 13, my mom helped me make a vision. My vision has stayed the same over the years, but how I've gone about it has evolved or changed. Ways I fulfilled my vision. I went to soup kitchens with my skills trainer, Brendan, baked for others, helped my grandmother and grandfather. Brendan was my skills trainer for years. This was so impactful in my life because when I was traumatized, I did not leave my house for years. I did not trust many people. Brendan came in and built trust and made me feel safe with someone that was not my family for the very first time. He inspired me to do the same. And we're still very close friends actually. Very great guy, and we still text like at least every month. All right. My vision evolved. I became a mentor for students at middle school that had school refusal, thanks to my therapist who believed in me. Then I became a skills trainer for the Arc of Greater Brockton. Making connections with the people I mentor really made a difference for both me and the person being mentored. Being able to connect with someone provides friendship, trust, and just makes feel good to have someone to hang out with. This all makes me think of my current skills trainer, who happens to be a friend, wingman, and one of my support people. Thank you, Adam, for being a part of my journey. But before I move on, I'd like to share a story actually about Adam. And he's probably out offending, but he does not know what this is. This one. So, there was a time in my life when I was going through a dark place, I should say. It was something I'll get into later, but long story short, I had cancer for a little bit. Every single time I got around to my treatments, after every single time, that man right there always texted me. I can't tell you how much that actually meant to me, man. Like literally, you're literally like a brother at this point. Speaking about cancer and my vision. During cancer,
Change
I
the
was
slide,
asked to
Jonathan.
testify for supported decision making. Oh. Almost forgot about that. During cancer, I was asked to testify for supported decision making. This gave me such a purpose when I needed it the most. This kept my vision alive and made me feel needed. Still getting used to this. Supported decision making. A lot of people like me have a guardian. I don't. Instead, I use something called supported decision making. Supported decision making is an alternative to guardianship where the person picks a group of people they trust to help them make decisions. I'm the decision maker in my life. I have used supported decision making in my fight against cancer, my mental health, and in most aspects of my life today. Oh, since I'm skipping a couple of stuff, let me go into a quick little story here that I tell to all the people I talk to in Operation House Call whenever I give those talks. There was a time that I wanted to quit cancer, actually. There was a time that I wanted to be all over. And, well, let's just say supported decision making helped me so much with that. It generally I would not be the same man if supported decision making was not in my life. I would have been a shell of a human being if I had guardianship for me personally. Guardianship is good for people that need it, but for me in that time, if I had guardianship, I would either not be here today speaking, or I would be a shell of a human being. So I have to thank supported decision making and all the people that are trying to make this law. Thank you. Speaking of great people, during my advocacy for supported decision making, I met Bob Sullivan, who is here today, who has helped me to evolve my vision even more by teaching medical students about people with disabilities, so that everyone gets the health care they deserve to live their best life. I am a very proud ambassador for Operation House Call. We're not done with more just yet. I was gonna probably save this for, I was thinking just now if I should save this for when I introduce more or not, but it's already in my mind, so I might as well do it now. Moore is one of the kindest humans I know. I see a lot of my mother in her when I think of Moore. They both help me, they both want to help, and expect nothing in return. I hope to continue to learn from both of them. As the ambassador for Operation House Call, I get to share strategies, mentor, support, and help guide our co-teachers. Being an ambassador for Operation House Call has made me more confident in my own teaching. Helps me make more connections to other co-teachers to build up their confidence and self-esteem. And I'm helping make sure that everyone gets the health care they deserve. I'm the type of guy that has learned from a very young age how to turn a traumatic event into a positive difference. Operation House Call is so very important to me because I experienced a lot of different situations before, during, and after my cancer diagnosis. Some are good, some are bad. Operation House Call continues to help me evolve my vision of helping others any way I can. I feel so strongly that when a person that may happen to have a disability comes into the hospital or anywhere and may present with a so-called behavior, that everyone needs to understand that people have behaviors because they are trying to communicate something. So please think about how you are going to communicate with people around you. This will allow everyone to live their best lives and get the supports they may need. I truly believe as human beings, we are all different, whether you have a disability or not, and your voice matters. My plans for the future are to continue to live each day, be positive, and make others happy. I feel like things happen for a reason. If you want to learn more about supported decision-making and Operation House Call, for supported decision-making, go to supporteddecisionmaking.org. And for Operation House Call, go to thearcofmass.org/OHC/. That's really all that is for. And if you want to contact me for any gigs or anything like that, here's my email address. Thank you.
For having me today. I just feel so honored to stand up here after Jonathan, and I'm just so proud to have him as our ambassador for Operation House Call. I feel like Jonathan has made so much progress in just the short time that he's worked in Operation House Call, and some of that progress has been related to learning how to just really impact medical students by telling his story. But you have to learn how to do that in a concise way, and he has to learn what they're really engaged in listening to, and he's really picked up on all of that. It's been amazing. And also working with you at the State House, I feel like the same things happen. You've evolved in your advocacy, and another really hard thing to do is to take the disappointments, with the progress, right? And so we worked really hard last session on supported decision making, and we got so very close with a unanimous passing in the Senate, and then it got hung up in the House, and it didn't go through. But this is all just part of learning, and Jonathan, you took it in stride, and you came back for more advocacy when needed, and I expect we're gonna have a really good session with that this year as well. So, and thank you so much for all your kind words. I'll just introduce myself a little bit more. I'm Mara Sullivan, and I'm Director of Government Affairs and Health Policy for the ARC of Mass, and I run Operation House Call. And I've been running this program I've been teaching it for 12 years, which seems like a really long time. Part of the program is medical students go out and visit homes of individuals and families who have autism or an intellectual and developmental disabilities. And they get to spend a couple hours just really knowing what life is like living with a disability. And I have 3 kids, and my 2 boys, actually young adults now, have autism, and one of them has a lot of medical complexity. So we had a very long and complex medical journey with him. The medical students through this program came to our house pretty much every weekend. My kids kind of grew up on the laps of medical students. So, so let me tell you a little bit more about Operation House Call. Okay, so we started out just at BU 12 years ago, BU School of Medicine, and we're growing and growing, and now we're reaching about 1,300 medical and graduate students each year. We have over 250 families who volunteer to participate in the program, and those are the families that bring these students into their homes. Right now we're doing it virtually to be safe, but this is the really unique part of the program. We call it that's our experiential learning, and that's really where students really gain a lot of insight and even shift some bias that they may be carrying. So it's such an important part. But really the goal of Operation House Call is just to build confidence and interest. And I'll tell you, Jonathan in his teaching does that so well. And then again, we want to bring to the attention of medical students that implicit bias that can affect treatment and assessment. And through our personal stories and challenges, this is how we've been able to do that. Maybe Jonathan can share one of his stories after. But so these are the schools. We're now in Boston University School of Medicine, Tufts University School of Medicine, Harvard Medical School, UMass Medical School, Simmons Graduate School, and UMass Graduate Nursing School. So we're also having some great national recognition. We were highlighted by the National Academy of Science, Medicine, and Technology. And Jonathan and I just did a national podcast for the National Disability Rights Organization. So it's really a unique program. We're super proud. And it has a bunch of components. We have a lecture, and then during that lecture, that's when Jonathan will come in and other co-teachers, and they will tell their story to the medical students. Then we open it up for questions and answers, and this gives the medical students this awesome opportunity to practice communication, to get to know that individual, to start to feel comfortable. By the end of class, the students are laughing, they're asking great questions, and they're ready to now move on to meet their family and have a great home visit as well. The students also do a writing piece after they meet their family. So this is really different for medical students. They don't do a lot of writing, but after they've had all of this experience meeting families and hearing our stories, then they write about it. And it's really beautiful to see how they shift in the respect that they gain for the individual with the disability and sort of the resilience they start to understand of the family. So it's pretty amazing. But I have to say, one of the best things that's happened in the last year is to really focus on this ambassador program. Because this was sort of a pot of gold within Operation House Call, but we didn't really have the capacity to grow it. And then Jonathan came along, and he took the reins and he said, yes, this is built for me. And what he's been able to do is to really focus on the self-advocate's experience, and bring this as a much more important part of the class. And not only is he doing that, but he mentioned in his slides, he's reaching out to the other co-teachers with a really wide range of disabilities. And he's working with them to feel more confident telling their stories, to hone in on kind of the important parts of their story that would be great to tell to medical students. And this is not just helping them in Operation House Call, but this is helping them in learning these self-advocacy tools for their lifelong journey. But I will say, healthcare advocacy is probably one of the most important things for people with a disability to learn, especially as they're transitioning into adulthood. So I'm super grateful for Jonathan. I think he's gonna lead this program, and we're gonna really be able to expand on it and bring a lot more ambassadors into Operation House Call. I would say one of the things that we get to do during class that's so powerful is we tell our families' personal stories, those stories that really have made an impact on us. And Jonathan has a couple that really speak to something called diagnostic overshadowing. It's when a doctor might just see the autism, but not look beyond that to see, maybe there's actually something going on like pain or discomfort or illness. So we try to tell those stories, but we also try to make sure that doctors, nurses, healthcare professionals all know the important role they play in changing culture. We know that there's bias that exists in the medical community. We want to shift that. We want all healthcare providers to see people with disabilities as equally valuable as any other patient that they treat. I often tell a story about Neil, my son, who's medically complex, and we met a doctor one day who really changed things for him and for our family. He was having a very difficult time in the emergency room. He has a lot of challenging behaviors, and he wasn't feeling well. He was screaming and crying, and he was kind of attacking his dad. And a patient in the waiting room stood up, and the patient looked right at me and said, "You ought to have to put a muzzle on that thing." And I remember feeling, like every bit of strength just left my body, and I had no idea how I was gonna get Neil through this emergency room visit. And really I was thinking, how am I gonna get Neil through life? And this doctor came out and he escorted this patient to a private room, but he came back and he came right over to Neil, and he bent down, he looked at Neil and he said, "What's your name?" And Neil is not speaking, so I said, "His name is Neil." And he said, "Neil, I am so sorry that you are hurting." and I'm sorry that you have to wait, but I'm gonna help you, and I'm gonna help your mom and dad because you deserve it. And then he looked up and people were listening, he looked around the room and everything changed. People were coming up to me and saying, oh, here's my kid's iPad, use it, and other people, that guy was a bully, don't listen to him. And I was like, yeah, anybody else want to talk to me about a muzzle right now? But what the power that he had in that moment is what we try to let these students know is their role. It's how they can make a difference. And not just in the healthcare setting, but out in society, like all of you do, literally every day. You're always standing up for people. And that's what we need. We need Jonathan to teach and this program to continue to teach. I worry about people who maybe don't have a mom and dad advocating for them, or if Neil was 40 years old, would a doctor come over when he was acting like that and help? If we didn't speak English, if there were other ways that we had a marginalized person, would someone stand up? And those are those critical things that our program tries to teach. So yeah, there's something really, really special about learning directly from individuals and families. And we're just super lucky to have Jonathan and Nancy to jump in, because there is a big piece of transition into adulthood where an individual needs to learn how to advocate for themselves, but still may need to fall back on their caregiver, on their direct support professional, or on their parent. So I don't know, Jonathan, is there any story within Operation House Call that you'd want to share?
Well, which one do you want me to share?
You know which one I love? When you're trying to get the MRI.
Oh, the
I just love that.
yeah, I can do that. You want me to come up with this?
I do.
I'm back, people. This was when we were trying to figure out if I had cancer or not. This is going to be interesting because I've never done one of these stories off the cuff before. So,
Start with your symptoms, your leg pain and walking.
So this is how it all began. I was on a walk with my mom, and when we were walking, my leg started to hurt. And we thought it was just a Charlie horse or some type of muscle tear or whatever. So we tried a bunch of different shoes. That didn't work. We tried some physical therapy. Didn't work. And some massage therapy. Didn't work. So then we were like, all right, we have to get an MRI.
First we went to
Oh.
doctors, and what happened?
Oh, I always forget about it.
That's
I always
okay.
forget that. I always think that happens after the
That's why you
MRI.
have me, buddy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Seriously, godsend. So we go to the doctors, and they immediately think that I'm crazy because, or he must be lying because, he's autistic and yada, 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 blah, 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 blah. Even though it wasn't just me, it was my mom who was telling them that, hey, there's something up with him, he doesn't really lie, and a bunch of stuff. It eventually got to the point where the doctor said, go take him to see a psychiatrist because he's probably lying, or some stuff like that. And we both, and it basically made us feel like the crazy ones because I keep feeling the pain and all that stuff. Hey, this foot right here was bigger than this one, even though it's kind of still is, but it was more red. So we finally get to the MRI, and
Before the MRI though, it was crucial that we kept going to a lot of doctors until we met who?
Right. Sorry, my
No.
brain is so scattered right now.
You're doing fine, sweetie.
So we went to doctor after doctor after doctor after doctor, and then by the grace of God, my grandfather actually suggested someone. Then, by the grace of God, I forget her name. God bless her. I don't remember her name, but
Dr. McGinnis.
I would just remember that name actually. Dr. McGinnis actually had an opening for Tuesday. He immediately took it. So we go in there, I do the thing, and then after a little bit, she looks me straight in the eyes and says, Jonathan, I do not know what's going on with you, but I'm going to find out. So this is the start of the MRI journey. The first MRI, I go in, everything's going good, get on the table, my back starts to scream out in pain. I basically have to tell them to stop, but they're like, oh, you can try again, it must be the lights, it must be the noise, it must be the claustrophobia. As I'm telling them, no, it's the pain. Okay, after that, we do a second round. After we had talked about possibly doing anesthesia, finally getting around the rounds. We didn't do anesthesia this round, so the same thing happened again. So from there, finally, the third time, I got the anesthesia, and I found out that I had Ewing sarcoma, which that's an entirely different journey that I can easily get into, but I don't know if I have the time for that. Yeah. So, do I hand it back to you, or do I hand it back to Dean, or?
I'm all set. Thank you for sharing that, though. I think it's really helpful.
Okay, everybody.